Okay. Give me a countdown of 3, then we're cool.
1, 2.
Hey guys, my name is Dan Volmer. I'm a realtor with Remax Alliance based out of Netherland, Colorado. And today I have Benjamin Gleason, the proud owner of Isolate Flotation Center here down in Boulder. And today we're going to learn a little bit about his business and how that impacts the community around him. All right, Ben, so if you wanted to introduce yourself and just kind of give an overview of your business, and most importantly, can you describe what a float is? Most people don't know.
Yeah, and it's growing in popularity, but it's actually been around since the concept of sensory deprivation tanks has been in practice since the early 50s. It didn't actually become popular until the 80s. There was a movie called Altered States, which is, if you want to have a really great time watching a terrible movie and laughing at how bad it is, check out Altered States. And it got a lot of popularity because of that, and then kind of went through a little slump, and then this guy, Joe Rogan, who most of you probably know, started talking about float tanks on his podcast about 10 years ago, and that really skyrocketed the industry. We were actually one of the first 100 float centers in the world.
No shit.
Yeah, I'm sure there were some before us, but at the time there were less than 100 when we started our spot.
So I've heard Boulder's kind of like the world capital for float centers.
Kind of, yeah. I'd say Oregon's another, Portland, Oregon's another spot for sure. But just, the Denver area, we have tons of float centers, and it's good because there's so many people. It's such a perfect match for what Coloradans are all about.
The culture.
Yeah, and I think just being in touch with yourself, creating a deeper relationship with nature, being relaxed, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind. These are all things that Coloradans really care about, and I think that floating will really enhance all of those things.
So how long have you guys been around just allowing people to help, find themselves?
Yeah, we started in 2012, so that's 8 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were in a different location in Boulder. We started off with one tank. It was small, and gosh, we've learned so much over the years.
What kind of an operation do you guys have now?
Now we have 4 tanks. We also have 2 massage rooms, so people can get massages and float in combination. We have couples come do that together too, so like one person will go float and get a massage, and then they switch.
So if you want a relaxing day, this is kind of an all-inclusive place.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things that's not just like, oh, let's go to the spa and like pamper ourselves, because I think massage too, but floating especially, it's one of those things that sometimes in the moment it feels good, and sometimes in the moment it's really challenging, because as I was just telling this person that I put in the tank, like ultimately what floating is really about is learning how to be with yourself, and a flotation tank creates a really intimate environment for you to experience yourself, because there's literally nothing else but you in there, so it's dark, it's silent, you can't smell anything, you can't taste anything. There's about 10 to 15, depending on which tank you're in, there's about 10 to 15 inches of water with 1,000 plus pounds of Epsom salt dissolved into it, so no matter what your body type, you will float like a cork. The temperature of the water is all designed to be the same temperature as your external skin temperature. So when you lay still, after a period of time, you will most likely start to notice that you don't really know where your body ends and where the float tank begins, because everything's so perfectly matched. So there's really nothing coming in to your whole sensory input system. So you just get to experience your internal sensations, some external sensations, but it's mostly just like your thoughts, your body, and whatever that is for you is what it's going to become. I can't tell people what a float's going to be like, because ultimately being with yourself is different from person to person and from day to day with that person.
So it's kind of like a disconnect from reality. It allows you to sit and talk to yourself and understand who you are on a deeper level.
Exactly. And I think the thing that I will say is, like, if that's not something that you're used to doing and just on your own, if you don't have a whole lot of dialogue with yourself about your life and what's working and what's not working, oftentimes the first things that's going to come up when you float is the things that aren't working, So a lot of people will come in and say, oh, I just, started worrying about a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like you need to figure that out. And like, what better place to do that than in a float tank where you have 0 distractions. There's nothing that's going to, get in the way of the information that you're getting from your internal system. So you're going to get a really accurate perspective of where you're at this point in time. And then because you have accurate information, you can make much better decisions on what needs to be done, what needs aren't getting met, how do I meet those needs. So I think it's a really great way to be in touch with yourself and maintain, just a higher level.
It sounds like you're able to kind of escape like reality in a sense and literally just have a conversation with yourself to the point where you're actually listening.
Yes. Hopefully you're listening. Some people don't, and then they get out and they're like, I was bored. I'm like, cool. All right, bye.
So if I'm a first time floater, is there a general consensus on what I can expect? Is it really unique to the individual itself, or can you just kind of describe what a first time floater is going to experience?
Yeah. So it's hard to say what a first time floater can really expect because flotation sessions are so different from day to day and from person to person. But the few things that I have heard to be common, which I would not take as like, this is what's going to happen. But I think time is really the biggest thing that people notice off the bat. Is the common thing people say is that at first it felt like it was taking forever and then all of a sudden it was over. And I think that it's similar to like a yoga class where you're like 25 minutes in and you're like doing plank and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. And you're looking at the clock like, when is this going to be over?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it's over and you're in Shavasana. You're like, wow, I feel so good and I'm so glad I did that. And so I think things that actually work have that sort of moment of like, this is challenging or this is there's discomfort or whatever it is, and then it moves and you feel like, I don't know, just a different sense, like you've been healed or that there's like some sort of new level of like relaxation or health in your body or whatever it is. And that's why I started doing this. Like I heard about floating from Joe Rogan's podcast, and I was in a point in my life where like I was realizing that the stuff that I was doing was really not making me happy, and I wasn't like creating a happy life for myself. And for the longest time, I thought that was like somebody else's responsibility, or like there was like some pill that was just gonna like make me happy.
Oh, the cure-all, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The easy way out, absolutely.
So, I listened to Joe Rogan, and he has a very empowered viewpoint. He's like, if you don't eat healthy and you don't exercise, you're gonna be miserable. And I'm like, I don't eat healthy and I don't exercise. I don't want to do that though. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
And so he was also talking about flotation tanks, and I'm like, well, that sounds pretty sweet, so I'll try that. And my first float session, it took me a long time to get relaxed, and it was awkward, and I was like, this is weird. And then the last 10 minutes or so, I finally like dropped into the experience, and I was like, this is what people use this for,
Yes.
And then they come, the place I was floating at the time, they knocked on the door to let you know your session's over, which is like not good. And they came and knocked on the door, and I was like, no, like I don't want to get out. Like this is amazing. Don't make me get out.
Why? Why in this?
So I got out, and like everything was different. Everything seemed alive. Like everything felt so much more real. And like I was in touch with a whole new level of like vitality, and I didn't think that was something that was really possible for me. And basically, like being with nothingness is what gave it to me, and that was the most empowering thing to me, because I realized like the float tank is a way to experience this, but because ultimately there's nothing in there, that thing that I experienced is always there. And so I just need to find a way to create more of that in my life. So I started eating healthy, I quit smoking cigarettes, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I started doing so much different stuff.
It was a whole 180 for you.
Complete, like totally different person. If you look at a picture of me back then, you're like, what? What's this person? Yeah, right? So that's what, I kept floating over the course of that year, where I was making all these changes, and then realized that there wasn't a place to float in Boulder at the time. So I started working to open my center, and we opened in May of 2012, and it's been
it's been incredible being able to sit and read some of the testimonies
of
the people that have been here, and it's just it's so like enlightening.
Yeah.
It's like they had never been able to experience themselves on such a visceral level,
right,
that they could actually listen and sit and understand. And I feel as if so many people try to work through issues in a one-size-fits-all approach, and this really kind of scales that back and just says, even if you're here just to have fun, just to have a relaxing day, your muscles are sore, maybe you have some trauma, maybe you have things you need to work through,
absolutely,
that this forces you to face them in a more relaxed manner that allows you to truly process and cope with everything that you've been through.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think so many people have so much on their plate that like trying to process all that and move through it is so daunting.
It's impossible.
Right, and I think floating gives people that opportunity to just sort of titrate that in a little bit and just like, okay, like this is the thing that's coming up right now, and I'm just gonna be with this and let that and feel what that feels like and let that move through me. And each time you float, just one little thing, you don't have to be this huge process. And I think floating is such a comfortable environment where it allows those things to come up in a way that's not necessarily like triggering,
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're really truly able to escape from reality.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest with you, Ben, when I did a little bit of research on, what a float center is, what a sensory deprivation tank is,
Yeah.
it was a little intimidating.
It is.
There's a lot of big words. There's a lot of things that are just, you're gonna get through this, and it's like, whoa. But when I actually had my first session, it was an incredibly escaping environment. It was incredibly relaxing, and it wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was. It was more welcoming than anything,
Right.
and that's something that I never thought it would be. And I was scared to do it until I did it. And when I did it, I realized, why have I been scared?
So, and here's my question, because I think most people feel that. And the thing that I've been so curious about over the 8 years that I do this is what made you decide to do it anyway, even though it was scary,
Yeah, and it was yeah.
You're a badass. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard to tell people why they should do this, because ultimately the thing that makes people go over the threshold and be like, I'm going to do this thing, and my body's like terrified of it because it's like I can't even conceive of what it would be like, but I'm going to do it anyways. And that thing, you can't convince people of that, They have to find that within themselves. And so I always say that the perfect person for floating is anybody who's ready for it,
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of being ready for it, I'd love to go and check out, see the equipment, see what it's like, and kind of give everybody an idea of really what to expect.
Yeah. Cool. Well, come on back. Welcome to my awesome float center. This
thing's incredible.
Yeah. So they're very large.
All right, give you guys a little bit of a tour. So really, this is it. It sounds far more complicated, really, than it looks.
Yeah, it's just a box of water. But I will say, keeping boxes of water well maintained is really hard.
So how many steps do you guys have on an average tank to just ensure everything's good?
It's not a ton, just because everything's so comprehensive. So we test every morning for hydrogen peroxide levels. Generally, we keep them between 30 and 50 parts per million, which is all you'd ever need to make sure that everything's super clean. And then we make sure that people shower before they get in the tanks, so that they're not bringing anything to the tank with them. And then after each flow session, we run our filtration system for 20 minutes so that it gets tons of exposure to UV, and it runs through the filtration system to get any solids that might be like hair or whatever in there out. And it's So
and I can see, the room itself is big. You have your own personal shower. You have your own personal bathroom.
Yeah, this is actually something that most float centers don't have.
I've never seen this at a float center out of the two that I've been.
Yeah, and if you have to get out to use the bathroom, which because it's so detoxifying, almost everyone has to pee at some point in their float session.
Yeah.
And so, one, it cuts down on mess because everywhere else you'd have to put on the robe, walk all the way out to the front in the bright lights, and be around people in the middle of your float session to use the bathroom.
Yep.
So it was expensive to do it, but it's one of those things that I've been really adamant about since the beginning. I'm like, I don't want to leave the room once I'm in there, So you put a toilet in there, and it's great.
I feel like it really creates a more intimate, welcoming experience where it's like,
this is yours.
this is it. Yeah, I truly do feel like king of the castle right now.
Yep.
I have lay of the land, and it's awesome. It makes me feel far more comfortable just going into it.
Cool. That's what we're going